you know, you don't have to spend a ton of money living this way. If you wanted to stay at each spot for 2 weeks each time, because that's your limit, you don't spend any money. I mean, you bounce from one spot to the next, but once you have all your systems in place, and once you've got, you know, your basic 4 covered, I mean, you're good to go. What's up, everybody? All right, so July 4th weekend coming up. Gonna be hanging out with my friend Tisha. She's got this really awesome van that she just built out, and she just sold her house. She's hitting the road full time, so I'm really looking forward to checking it out. It's a sweet van, and the only thing I'm wondering is, like, how much does it cost, because it's really customized. And which brings me to the topic of what I want to talk about today. It's getting a little windy, so we're going to hop in the topper and record this so the audio doesn't suck. But I want to talk about how you don't have to be rich in order to live this way. You can do this on a shoestring budget. And I want to give you some ideas and some tips on how you can do that. So let's hop in the truck and talk about this. All right, we're going to do this with notes. That way I make sure I cover everything, because I don't want to just freewheel it and forget stuff. So I want to take this and I'm going to film them in segments and just put them all together. And that way it's kind of comprehensive for y'all. But, you know, like I was saying, I think the big misconception about living this way is that you have to have a ton of money to come out here and do this. And that's not true at all. I think that, you know, I used to think that when I first hit the road. Excuse me, I thought that I had to save up a huge nest egg and have all this money and all these resources and all this stuff to come out here and live this way, because quite honestly, living this way is foreign to all of us. You know, we've all been trained to live in the normal corporate environment and normal kind of, like, you know, subdivision or city living or whatever you want to call it. And then coming out here, you kind of have to just create new ways of doing everything. And so, you know, the basics, the number one basic thing that you need in order to live this way is a vehicle. So if you have a vehicle, you can customize it to whatever you want. Now, I've seen people in huge rigs, and I've seen people in vehicles as small as like a Prius, that full time. So it just depends on what your level of comfort is, and also what you're willing to do as far as like a living space and cooking space and all those things are concerned. If you want to have a real big space, say like a big cooker, and you love to bake stuff and love to cook things, then I would say more of like an RV route would be better, because that way you could have a full kitchen. Obviously, in something like this, I'm not going to have a kitchen. It's pretty small. Let's see. If you see here, I'll have, like, you know, like, I'll make coffee in here. I've got my little pocket rocket stove that I can put on top of the fuel canister here, and that's about it as far as my you know, cooking in this little space. So you got to think, like, if you want to have a rig to where you can do that, then you need to have the size that can accommodate it. Same thing if you have like a family. If you're traveling with a bunch of people, this wouldn't be ideal for more than one person. I think even just 2 people in here would be a little much. And so, you know, like, my setup is great for one person that wants to jam in the backcountry and just get to as many hard to reach places as I can and be able to take everything with me. And as a result of it, I compromise comfort. You know, my convenience is being able to go anywhere I want. And as a result of that, I'm able to get away from people. So that's what I want. So that's why I built my vehicle and, you know, customize it to fit that. And that's what you'll do too. If you want to hit the road, you're going to build out your vehicle according to what you like to do. If you like to cook, like I was saying, you're going to have a big kitchen. If you like to jam on trails and you want to do minimal things, you could do a build out like mine. If you want to have a super comfy rig and just hang out in campgrounds and hang out around a bunch of people when you're out here full time, and just, you know, have more of that social interaction as opposed to the social isolation, then like a big RV or something like that would be great. You know, I think that one of the reasons why we have a misconception about this is because the overland lifestyle is glorified by all these companies that have these massive rigs that cost in the upwards of $1 million. And it's like, who can afford that? You know, there's like, what the 1% of the world can afford something like that. And out of that 1%, how many of those people actually want to come back here and do that? Now, I'm not knocking any of those vehicles at all. I mean, you look at them and they're the most comfortable vehicles on the inside you've ever seen in your life, and they're like a swanky hotel room. I mean, the Earth Roamer's badass on the inside. The big one that they had, that new one, is huge. I mean, it's insane. But you got to think, like, is that Earth Roamer going to be able to get up to where I've been all these, you know, past couple of weeks in the high country here up above Leadville, Colorado, going on all these tight trails that only my Tacoma can fit on? I mean, the answer to that's no. So it depends. Like, do you want that extreme comfort and you want to hang out in that? If so, it comes with a big price tag. Do you want to be able to get into the backcountry, and do you say you already have a 4x4 truck? Well, just slap a topper on it, and if it's long enough, you're good to go. If not, you can build a slide-out extension like I did. This extension only cost me roughly about $300 when it was all said and done. I've been rocking it now for almost 3 years. So you know, it's like I took the truck that I had and I just made it work, and you can do that too. So let's cover the systems that you'll need to have in order to just to make sure the baseline is covered to live this way, because there are some things that you need to do in order to deck out your vehicle to where you don't need to go back in town all the time and like charge up or, you know, do a bunch of other things. So let's hop into that here next. Okay, so for the number one system that I think you should get, gosh, there's basically 3 components that you need to add to your vehicle. You know, once you've decided you want to live in it, you already have your shelter. So like your vehicle's your shelter, so you don't need the shelter. Okay, but you do need power. Okay, so are you going to do solar power? If so, there is a drawback with that. During rainy season, when it's cloudy out for weeks on end, you don't pull any power from the sun. Do you want to run your battery off of it like a secondary battery that's powered from your vehicle when you run it, that you can have underneath the hood, that pulls from that all your electrical devices will pull from? That's great, but the problem is you have to have your vehicle running in order to charge it up. And so if you're not driving a bunch, you know, you may have a scenario to where you have to just turn on your vehicle and just charge the engine, or charge the secondary battery from your engine, which that's kind of a waste of gas. But if you have both, you have like a portable panel and then the secondary battery, like my buddy Craig does. He has the secondary battery which charges off of his inverter when he's driving, but if he's parked in one space for a long period of time, then he can bust out the solar panel and you're good to go. So that's a great solution. So I think as far as power goes, if you get your power system set up, then you can build upon that and make sure that everything is functional back here in the backcountry. The main thing that I push off of my power system is the Dometic fridge that I have. Right now I'm rocking the CFX 28. I love that fridge. It's great. I'm talking to Dometic right now about collaborating with them on the new line of refrigerators they have out, so I need to reach out to them and hit them up about a new one. But Dometic is great. You know, any of those ice chests or any of the electric coolers. I mean, like Alpicool, I think is Alpicool or Alpicool. It's a more of affordable and economical brand. My buddy Craig just got that for his fridge and his truck. Loves it. Works great. Only pulls 1 amp an hour at max draw, which is good. So it's not pulling a bunch of energy. Another thing too is like, don't be intimidated with energy specifications or like not knowing what you're talking about when it comes to energy, because nobody does. I mean, like, we're all used to just plugging something in the wall and it just works. So when you get back here, you start to learn that just by, you know, you'll have a battery. Like I started out, I didn't even have a battery. I would do everything off the inverter in my truck, so I would charge stuff when I get to camp, or if I was in town, I'd charge everything up, and then I'd have that battery life to hold me on whether it was my laptop or my phone or whatever for quite some time. But, you know, the vehicle is another good place to charge. So like I said, I'd charge off the inverter and all that stuff. Then I graduated, got a Jackery 500 battery, which was pretty good, but that was only about 21 amp hours and 500 watts, which wasn't as sufficient to push all the stuff that I have. So I upgraded to the Max Oak EB150. It's a 1500 watt hour, 101 amp hour battery. Now with the 101 amp hours, my router, let's see, where's it at? This little router right here that I use pulls about 1 amp an hour. So that's a little bit of a draw there. Then with the fridge that I have, that's 0.7 amps an hour. So I've got 1.7 amps an hour that I know will automatically be drawn from my battery 24 hours a day. So with that, with the battery being 101 amp hours, if you do some simple math, I roughly have about 2 days worth of operating power before I start to get in a critical area where I need to start to recharge. Once you start to understand your energy consumption and your energy limitations, then you can really start to dial in your rig as far as what you'll need to operate back here. Because like, I can operate fully back here. I do all my work from back here. I do all my work from the road. I never have to go into a co-working space like I used to, or any free Wi-Fi spot. I can just do it all from out here, and I have the power to push everything, and then I just keep jamming. So what that does in my mind is it frees up more time for me to stay back here, and then also frees up resources. Like, I don't have to spend as much money. There's a crazy rig across the way. I don't have to spend as much money rolling into town. I don't have to spend the gas, with, you know, and like I was saying, the time that I save from not doing that. I can spend more time back here just doing what I want, and it doesn't interrupt that flow of being in the backcountry. Because like, when you're back here, it's really a nice ebb and flow. You know, it's pretty mellow, the sun and the moon, like the, you know, sunset, sunrise, all that stuff. the rivers, you know, the wind through the trees, all that stuff. It's great. But then you go into town and it disrupts that because you hear the city noises. And so I like to stay back here for days at a time, and then I'll plan a day in town and say, okay, I'm going to roll into town on day 4 of me being back here and get supplies. And that way I can kind of like prepare myself for social interaction, and then I can just get my stuff and come back here and I'm good to go. So power system, I think, is definitely key, and I would highly recommend investing in that first. And it's going to help you just be productive when you're out there and not have so many wrenches thrown in your schedule throughout the day with not having power. Okay, so the building on the power thing, like I was saying, the number one device that I run off that is my fridge. And had I known the fridge would have been such a game changer compared to the ice chest that I used to have, I would have done that almost immediately. Just because, like, I rolled with an ice chest for 4 years, and there's nothing wrong with an ice chest, except for the fact that you have to go back in town often to get ice. Now, people can say, oh, the Yeti this, or the, what's that other one? There was like an Arctic, or, you know, oh, they hold for 6 or 7 days. That's crap, okay? There might be a little bit of ice left in the cooler, but the temperature all around in your entire cooler is not the same as that ice. So by the time it gets down there, pretty much all of your goods in there are going to have a ton of condensation on them. If they are perishable goods or like lettuce or asparagus, stuff like that, it just tanks it immediately. And it's not like that dry cool. It's a very wet, humid, damp cool. And I found that when I switched over to the fridge, it's like I can buy all the lettuce stuff and it keeps for much longer. I can keep meats in there for much longer. I can actually do this thing to where if I take some cardboard about like so big, then make a seal close to the bottom, put some aluminum foil around it, I can actually trap frozen items on the underside, put the temperature down to 32, and then put that thing down, and everything above it will stay unfrozen. So I can actually have a freezer and a non-frozen portion. But it's just really expanded my diet as far as what I can carry back here. And I have a real bad problem with allergies, and I'm actually thinking about getting allergy shots again. And it's little vials that I'd have to carry, but I have to keep them at a certain temperature. And so health-wise, I mean, not only does it increase with, or not only does your health improve with the amount of food that you can carry, with the good food you can carry, but also in my situation, it's going to help me with my allergies, because once I go to an allergist and get that little concoction made for my allergies, then I'll be able to give myself shots and I won't have all these problems with my allergies back here. So a fridge is a game changer. And then also too, you can keep ice cream in it, which, I mean, who doesn't want ice cream at camp? It's the best thing on the planet. So if you're going to go do this, understand that you know, those fridges, you don't have to pay for like $1,000 fridge if you don't want to. You can go for one of the more affordable brands like the Alpacool, and I think that's like $200 or $300. And I mean, that's what you're going to spend on a decent cooler. So might as well spend it on an electric cooler and be able to keep things at a better temperature. So that, I like that, because if I have enough food in here and then enough dried, dehydrated food, I can literally stay out for like a month. So with the food in my fridge and the dehydrated food and everything else, I'm out here for a long period of time, and it's great. And I don't have to run into town to get ice or refresh any of my grocery items, you know, for weeks, which is great. So it's all about this whole mindset that I have about this video is about keeping you out longer and not having you go back into town every 2 days to get stuff, because who wants to do that? So, all right, on to the next subject. Okay, I would say the third system, you know, you're gonna have to figure out your cooking system. And like I was saying before, if you have like a big RV to where you've got your cooking system on the inside, you're set. But if you're going for like more of a compact, mobile, more flexible, where you can get sort of set up with your vehicle, like a truck or like Subarus. I've seen a bunch of Subarus outfitted lately that look really cool. You know, if you've got that, then you're probably going to be using like some sort of camp kitchen, you know, like something that maybe you've used like a 2-burner stove, or, you know, if you want to go real simple, you could use just the 1 canister in the Pocket Rocket from MSR for your stove, or you could do something like the BioLite camp stove, you know, that creates energy from the little fire container that you're using. But, you know, if you do that, you're going to need to invest in your cooking system, and then also a water purification system. And that's the big one. A lot of people will get a real good cooking system, but they won't think about the water purification, and they might be new to the game and they come back here and they get all set up and they think, ah, dang it, I got to run to town and get water refreshed, which is kind of a bummer. Now you can sit there and you could boil water all day long, but there's still particles inside the water that you need to filter out. And so you know, I use the MSR Guardian. It's an expensive water purifier. I'll put that link in the video description below. It's $350, but that thing jams through water. It's got a pump on the side, and I think it's good for 100,000 liters before you have to replace the filter on the inside. Now, MSR did me a solid because I was using it last year, and the handle on it broke last fall. And so I sent it in. I was like, hey, this is past the warranty. You know, whatever it costs to fix, just let me know. Because I use this thing every day. It's like, I haven't drank out of tap water. The only time I drank out of tap water was this past fall and winter when I went back to Kansas to help my parents help my mom with her surgically repaired knee. But other than that, I mean, I haven't drank out of tap water in a long time. And I like drinking out of these rivers and stuff like that. It tastes really good. But, you know, I don't have 2 hours to just sit there and let a gravity water purifier do its thing. I've got to be able to pull up to the spot, jam it out, and then keep running. And so that's why I like the MSR Guardian. So the MSR did me a solid, like I was saying. I sent it in. They repaired the handle at no charge, and they replaced the interior filter for me for free, which was like a $100 deal, which I thought was pretty solid. So MSR, if you're watching this, thanks a lot. So your cooking system is important. I would recommend what I go with the 2-burner system from Coleman. Like the Coleman Triton 2-burner stove is awesome. It has wind flaps on both sides, so that way you can help with the wind if you're out in camping in windy conditions. It packs up to like the size of a small briefcase. It uses propane. You can get that anywhere. It's cheap fuel to use and it's readily available. And then for cooking, actually, the actual mess kit, I have the same mess kit that I started using when I was in Boy Scouts. So it's this old MSR mess kit that I've had for like 3 decades, and I use that, and it works great. And then the only other thing that I use is cast iron. So I love cast iron cooking. I mean, if any of y'all follow my winter camping videos, you would realize that I just love to bake stuff in the cast iron, and I'm on a little bit of a health kick right now, but by next winter, I think I'll probably be back into my full-on cinnamon rolls every day and, you know, bacon burritos and all that stuff. So I would say it's a third system that's needed. So, all right, on to the fourth system. Okay, now your fourth system is kind of a no-brainer. It's your sleeping setup. And so it's important to dial that in and realize that, you know, back here, you're going to be using a ton of energy, a lot more so than when you're at a house, you know, kind of taking a breaks throughout the day and sit on a couch and stuff like that, like I used to do. Because out here, you're on your feet constantly. It's like if I'm not in my truck, which I don't like to be during the day, I'm only doing this to film the video. If I'm not in my truck sleeping, then I'm outside either fly fishing or working on gear or reorganizing stuff or, you know, hanging out with Sierra, just doing whatever. And so your sleeping setup is really, you know, it's really essential to make sure you can just keep jamming and living this way. Because if you don't have proper sleep, I mean, everything else just breaks down. Like, you know how tiring it is when you have insomnia in the corporate world. And everything's kind of set up for you. Like your water you can get from a tap. You can just plug in your electricity. You're good to go. Your food's just in the fridge, or you can just go somewhere and order it and they just give it to you. But out here, it takes a little bit of effort to do everything. And so when you're exhausted from not sleeping well, from having a crappy bed or whatever, you know, it makes all those tasks just that much harder to do. And it's kind of it can be pretty frustrating. So the sleep system is important. What I have for my sleep system, I have a 4-inch memory foam mattress here in my truck topper, and then I've got 2 pillows that I use to prop my head up a little bit, just because I have problems breathing with allergies. And for the sheets in here, I've got just one normal sheet, and then I've got like a fleece sheet over here. Oops, I didn't realize all this trash was just sitting over here. I'll take this and throw it out. All this, I've got a fleece blanket over here, and then an actual comforter right here, and that's it. I can operate off that just fine. I mean, the blanket, the sheet's great if it's just nice temperatures out. Say it gets down to like 60 at night, I can just sleep with the sheet on top of me and Sierra right next to me are perfectly good. Or if it's really cold, like last night, it got down to 28 down here. I had all 3 blankets on me, and Sierra was right next to me because she sleeps right here and I sleep here, and we were plenty warm. And so I woke up in the morning around 6 a.m., started making breakfast in here, and we were jamming. So So that's kind of what I think about the sleep system. You know, there's some people that need really elaborate sleep systems. I'm lucky in the sense that I don't need that. I thought that I needed it when I was in the corporate world, but it was just all that stress that I have when I lived that way, which required me to like have an elaborate sleep system to try to coax my body to go to sleep. But out here, I don't have problems with going to bed. It's just staying asleep, because like recently with allergies, I haven't been able to breathe, so I wake up in the middle of the night gasping for air. But you know, I would say get your sleep system as comfortable as you can, because that's going to serve you really well. You know, your sleep system, eating well, those two things go hand in hand, and I cannot stress to you the importance of making sure that you pay very close attention to each, because if you don't eat well out here, your energy levels will be jacked up, and you won't have the fortitude to operate and do things like you should. And then same with sleeping. If you're not getting enough sleep, you're not going to have the motivation to do this stuff. You'll be exhausted. And so that's kind of what I think about living this way. Like if you have a car, you're already halfway to being out here. Now, if you are wanting to talk about how to, what steps to do to get into nomadic living, I think I should do that in another video, because that's a long process. But it's a process you can start, and the way you can start is by downsizing. And so if the first advice I can give you to that, and we'll do this in another video, we'll go into the whole thing, but like downsize everything that you have, and then downsize it again, and keep downsizing until you can get everything into your vehicle. And then you're good to go. And then once you get on the road, you'll realize, like, I don't need half this crap anyway, and you'll downsize again. I've done like 6 downsizes since I've been on the road. But, you know, you can figure it out. It's just, you have to remember that operating out here is completely different than operating in a house. So the same costs and processes that you would apply to living in a house don't apply to out here. Okay, it's different. And so once that lifestyle, once you've made the changes in how you live, and once you have like a kind of like a new way to operate your day, every day that you go through, you have a new way to operate it. It's kind of cool, because you create your own flow, and I love it. I mean, it's something where I get up in the morning. I get up around. I get up pretty early. I get up around 5 in the morning every morning, and I'll get up and the sun's not up yet, and I'll just kind of hang out. Then I'll get out the topper. I'll get Sierra out real quick so she can use the restroom. Then we'll hop back in about 7 a.m. I'll start making breakfast in here, or if it's a really nice morning, I'll make breakfast outside. And then by 10 a.m. we're out jamming on trails and just having fun and running around. And so I really like that. And I love the fact that I get up in the morning, I have like a set routine of what I do with me and Sierra. And then it's like after that set routine's done, we're off to the races for the day. And then by the end of the day, I come back and I try to answer emails and like, you know, do anything on Patreon that I need to do and all that stuff. But, you can make it work. You just have to want it. And what I'd really recommend is like going out and trying it and testing out different things before you go full time, because you could test out a system and think that you could dial in a system and think that it's perfect, and then go out and test it and go, there's the improvement or the adjustment that I need to make. And so that's kind of what I think about it. But you know, you don't have to be rich to do this. Okay, you don't have to have a ton of money. You can do things extremely on the cheap out here. You know, you don't have to spend a ton of money living this way. If you wanted to stay at each spot for 2 weeks each time, because that's your limit, you don't spend any money. I mean, you bounce from one spot to the next, but once you have all your systems in place, and once you've got, you know, your basic 4 covered, I mean, you're good to go. So I don't know. I would encourage people, like if you're thinking about this, to hitting the road, you know, start testing it out, build out your vehicle, and you know, take out seats. I took out the back seats of my truck and built out a big storage area back there, but modify it and just look up online. There's tons of people doing DIY stuff, and you don't have to buy $1 million rig to hit the road. You just don't. And a lot of people think, they look at the glamorous, like I was saying, the glamorous Overland lifestyle on the Instagram accounts, and I think like, oh, I gotta buy like a $70,000 trailer, or I gotta buy a $70,000, you know, slide-in camper or whatever for my truck. You do not have to do that. You don't even have to come close to that. I mean, my slide-out extension was $300. I already had my truck and I already had my topper, so I made an Overland vehicle, you know, with that, and where I could live in it full time. And I've been rocking this thing for like 3 years. And that thing only weighs like 40 pounds. It didn't cost me anything. So, you know, another thing too is like back here, there's not a lot of ego among people that are full-timing. I see the ego among and I don't mean to be offensive to anybody when I say this, but the weekend warrior crowd, I see the compare and compete mindset among them. Once you get out full time, people don't give a shit. They're just like, man, you're doing it. Let me see what you're doing today. And I have people that come up and like have insane rigs. And they're like, what is that? Can I see what you're doing there? And I'm like, yeah. And I explained to them how my truck works. And they're like, dang, man. They're like, you can go anywhere. I'm like, yeah. They're like, man, I wish I had that. I was like, yeah, but I wish I had all that room that you have, man. I mean, yeah, there's no perfect rig. And that's what I tell people. But, you don't have to be rich to do this. And when you live on the road, you can put together work, part-time work, whether it's landscaping or work in parks and recs like I did in Crested Butte last year for the town, or anything. There's a bunch of different ways to make income out here. I mean, I do it now through content creation, but before that I did ranch work. I did a bunch of other things because I didn't want to motor through every single resource that I had just living on the road, like trying to make it work. I wanted to make sure that I was ahead of the game. And you can do that. You can, there's things you can be a campground host. I mean, you can do tons of stuff. And these mountain communities, you have to remember that they're pretty small. And so anything manual labor related, you can usually pick up work and you can get it pretty fast. So there's ways to string together income on the road. You don't have to be in the corporate world in order to do that. So anyway, this video is about that. Hope you all enjoy it. Thanks.